And welcome back to what we hope is a less cringy opening to the second episode of Unfinished Business with myself, Jacob Murgison.
And your host, Malcolm Gobius.
Had to put in that number one host there. I guess you don't play in second fiddle to me.
Nope, not at all.
So, on the second episode, we're going to discuss what happened to the 3 days of what we thought was a very eventful NFL draft.
Very eventful. It's just something to watch when sports have been off. I tuned in for as much as I could in the region here. I couldn't get as much as I wanted to, as if I was a U.S. citizen. But
so before you jump to any conclusions, he has a house, he lives fine, has internet, all that, but chose not to watch the NFL draft.
I did choose to watch it. It was not working. I'm telling you, I got upset. There's technical difficulties at my house, but I heard in the U.S. it went smooth sailing, so
couldn't call in Geek Squad with Corona happening. So
no, I could not.
Definitely a success in your minds, Malcolm, with no sports being on and this being the first live broadcast for sports, and I would say about a month and a half.
Yeah, very, very successful, I would say.
This year, the NFL draft reaches highest viewing percentage of all time, with 55 million people tuning in to watch it over the 3-day period. So definitely a big success in that perspective. So let's jump in to the discussion points for today. Go ahead, Malcolm.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on the NFL draft? Like you said, with everything going on with Corona, how do you think everything turned out, and what were your major takeaways from it?
Well, I was definitely disappointed for it not definitely being in Las Vegas this year, because I don't think you knew this, but with exams working out the way they were, I was about to fly to Las Vegas to watch the draft at the Bellagio.
Oh, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, like it's that cheap to fly to Vegas and stay there, but that's okay. But definitely very classy move on the NHL, the NFL, getting Las Vegas the 2022 draft. And so I hope maybe financial guidelines permitting and flights being cheap as they are right now, maybe a nice little graduation send-off in 2022.
That would be pretty nice, yeah.
But go ahead.
The one thing that I think that the players didn't, like the one thing that the players missed out on was being able to go up on the stage, shake the hands of everyone who drafted them, shake the hand with the commissioner. But then again, who really wants to shake hands with the commissioner? So, Roger, get it out.
Well, one thing I kind of took away from this here that it was definitely more personal intake from the draft, with everyone still being in their homes.
Yeah.
Ben, you don't see anybody in suits like you usually do in the NFL draft, because I know at least my mom's focal point is that she likes seeing the fashion that the NFL or soon to be NFL players wear with their suits, and it seems to be a focal point for people who aren't really NFL aficionados, like Zeke wearing the crop top all those years ago.
Yeah.
But if I have to ask you, what were your favorite picks for the NFL draft this year?
Well, me being a Steelers fan, right off the bat, I love Chase Claypool, Canadian boy. I think he's just a great pickup for them, adding with Juju being on their team too. He's 6'4", so he's a big red zone target. Last year, he had 13 touchdowns and 66 catches with over 1,000 yards. So I really like that pick by the Steelers. Also, with Marquise Goodwin being traded from the 49ers.
I didn't see that coming.
I did not see that coming. They traded for the 25th overall pick with the Vikings, and they picked up Brandon Ayuk. I really like Brandon Ayuk. He had almost 1,200 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns. And what really popped out at me is his average of 18.3 yards. So he's good run after the catch. I think that's great for the 49ers after losing Marquise Goodwin. And then my other pick that I really liked was defensive end AJ Epinesa for the Bills, 53rd overall. Last year, he had 11.5 sacks and 4 forced fumbles. I feel like the Bills team in general is just getting better and better as years go on, as every year. So I think those Bills are going to be a team to look out for in the future.
So if I can ask you a question, because since you are a Steelers fan, you don't think that Chase Claypool is going to turn to your prototypical tight end in the NFL at all, or he's going to stay at receiver?
Here, I actually have a quote from here. I wanted to say this before I answer anything.
Well, you got your agent beside you here, or what?
No, so I saw today the Pittsburgh Steelers, they posted a picture on Instagram. Brian Kelly, so the head coach of Notre Dame, he said, "You got a player who really resembles the fan base, the Steelers fan base. He is dependable, he is tough, and he's physical. He's a Steeler, and he is that kind of player. He epitomizes Steelers Nation, and I really like that. He could, like you said, he could turn into a tight end, being how tall he is, and he could just be that big red zone target. But they also do have Vance McDonald, so I could see him just developing as a wide receiver for this team.
Yeah, as much as I hate to say it, since I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, you gotta learn to hate Pittsburgh Steelers players.
Yeah.
But gotta root for the Canadian kid. You know, Abbotsford, BC native. Definitely had a solid college career. Just didn't really pan out in the bowl games. Didn't really show up in big games. But definitely, Coach Mike Tomlin knows how to shake up those players.
100%.
And definitely see him turning into the next Hines Ward.
Wow, that's a good comparison. I like to hear that. Thank you.
But from my favorite picks from the draft is definitely the 8th overall pick, Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson.
So
definitely
good.
surprised of how far he fell, although it was only 8 picks. But definitely could have seen him going to either New York or Carolina.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, goes to Arizona. But definitely my pick because of his draft interview was that somebody asked Isaiah Simmons, "What position do you play?" And he said, "I play defense."
Yep.
I play defense.
Yes.
Could play him at safety, could play him at inside corner, outside corner, linebacker. He doesn't.
Something else he said too. He said when you have a 53-man roster, right, on your team, he says when he gets drafted, it's like you have a 56-man roster, so he could play at 3 different positions. So I feel like he's very motivated and very determined to prove to everyone how good he is.
Yeah, definitely watch out for him to be defensive rookie of the year. My next pick is J.K. Dobbins, running back out of Ohio State. Fell all the way to Baltimore, the 55th overall pick. Definitely a shocker for me, knowing how great of production he had his senior year at Ohio State. 2,000-yard season with 21 touchdowns. Could definitely bring that 2 running back system that Mark Ingram had so much success with in New Orleans with him and Kamara.
Yeah.
So and Lamar Jackson knows how to run that read option already with Mark Ingram. So definitely a successful pairing in the works with J.K. Dobbins. Watch out for them. And my last guy I have here on my list is Xavier McKinney, safety out of Alabama, lining up the 36th overall pick to the Giants. Definitely should have been a first-round talent.
I think so too.
But not much demand for safeties in this draft. But definitely brings stability to that young Giants secondary with DeAndre Baker, them taking him last year very high in the draft. And Jabril Peppers, the former Cleveland Brown, not having the biggest year of statistically, but definitely Xavier McKinney can turn to that next Landon Collins that hopefully Dave Gettleman, the Giants, are looking them to be.
Yep. So our next topic here is, who do you think will have a better career, Tua or Herbert, now that we know who they were drafted to and what their situation is?
I've always been high on Tua Tagovailoa to the start. Shout out to my dad, who did not think that Tua Tagovailoa is going to be going to Miami, but proved him wrong. That's why he's on the podcast today. But definitely Tua, just because of the numbers don't lie. Definitely national champion, 2-time made it to the national championship twice. Definitely has that injury history there, but I think in 21st century times that these injuries at such a young age, they can get over them pretty quickly. Different story if he was like 35. I don't know if he'd be able to get over it or not. But I was listening to First Take this morning, and they were saying that they don't think they're going to be playing Tua to start off the season. What do you think about that?
Really? I did not know that. Who would they start? Would they start Fitzmagic still? Or
Well, it would be Fitzmagic or Josh Rosen.
Yeah, so I understand that because it's the same thing with Herbert where you can let him sit behind Tyrod Taylor in LA and just let him develop. So I feel like the Dolphins don't want to rush anything. And again with his injury, maybe not want to get him injured right away. So could be a good move. But
just the Chargers have a primary quarterback already in their roster with Tyrod Taylor, who's made the playoffs already.
Exactly, yeah.
But Fitzpatrick and Josh Rosen really are like they're going to be. Well, Josh Rosen is going to be a journeyman with Fitzmagic already being a journeyman. But they definitely took Tua to start, I think, personally speaking, and they did a lot in the draft already to help him out with drafting Austin Jackson, offensive tackle out of USC. So definitely, I think in the long run, you maybe see Justin Herbert have a bit more success in his career, as in Super Bowl title. But I think Tua will have better numbers.
Yeah, I totally agree with that statement.
But our next topic here is that Green Bay Packers making a big splash in the draft, drafting Jordan Love out of Utah State. But my question to you is, are you surprised that they did not take a receiver at all in this draft?
Yes. Well, I'm not surprised about Jordan Love. Obviously, I had him going to the Packers. Just I didn't expect him to trade up to take him, but they still got him. I am surprised they did not take any receivers because their main receivers are now Devontae Adams. He's still great, one of the best receivers in the league. but then they have Lazard as well, and I think they just need that number 2 guy still, which they don't have. They signed Devin Funches, but he's still someone who can't be a reliable number 2 guy, and I feel like they could have got that with this deep wide receiver draft class. Who knows? They could trade for a wide receiver before the season starts, or look in free agency. I know AJ Green still isn't. I know the Bengals put a franchise tag on him, but is he for sure going to stay now? Do you think with Joe Burrow being drafted?
Well, probably, because I don't think he needs to establish himself again in the league.
Yeah.
That he really hasn't played like in the last 2 seasons. It really has not been up to AJ Green material.
Yeah.
And now that he has a solid quarterback in Joe Burrow, we don't know if it's a solid quarterback or not, but as of right now, he's a solid quarterback in Joe Burrow and a solid number 2 receiver in T. Higgins. And I think that'll definitely help AJ Green out with his numbers and not having to be matched up with the highest cornerback. But my stat that jumped out to me is that the Packers have never selected a receiver in the first round in the Aaron Rodgers era.
Jeez.
Which is definitely, I don't know
mind-boggling.
Why, but it's definitely that they lean on Aaron Rodgers so much in that organization to get it done. So I think that they can work with mediocre, and I hate to use the word mediocre, but mediocre receivers, and that Aaron Rodgers just knows how to make them shine. And but that probably says the reason why they've only made 1 Super Bowl in the Aaron Rodgers era, that they don't have much help around them. And they definitely could have, as you said, taken a receiver in the later rounds with Denzel Mims. Yeah. Jalen Reagor should have been in the second round, but that's okay. That's for a later topic to discuss.
Okay, so for our next topic then, the Giants at number 4, they took Andrew Thomas as the first offensive lineman off the board. What do you think of this decision?
Definitely a shocker to me, because I had Andrew Thomas going to my Brownies with the 10th overall pick. Definitely shocked they did not go with Tristan Wirfs or Jedrick Wills to start off the bat. Definitely should have traded down if they were looking to take Andrew Thomas as their primary player. But, it still fills the void that they needed at left tackle. It's just an abysmal O-line there in New York, and it does fill the hole, but definitely could have got some assets back in return. What do you think?
Well, like you said, I thought Wirfs or Wills were going to go before him. Even Mekhi Becton, he went to the Jets, so I just didn't agree with that. I know I have a friend who's a Giants fan, and he was hoping O-line the whole time, but when they took Andrew Thomas, he was pretty upset with that decision, so I feel like they could have done better and, like you said, traded down just to get more assets and pick a better O-lineman.
Because it's not like they're a 13-3 team. They've been pretty much the laughing stock of the NFC East for the last 3 or 4 years. So they definitely needed to make something turn out of something there. But definitely there's no shock. My personal opinion, the most shocking pick in the NFL draft was Jalen Hurts going to Philadelphia.
Yeah, so Jalen Hurts to Philadelphia is basically, I think, going to be another Taysom Hill situation with Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints, where he can do running back, he could be receiver, he could be quarterback. I'm just confused as to why they picked him with Carson Wentz as their quarterback. I know he's injury prone and everything still, but I think in my opinion, I think they're using Jalen Hurts as trade bait and maybe hopefully can trade for a better receiver with Jalen Hurts. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely made the pick for that security blanket, like you said, because Carson Wentz has not really had a full season since his rookie season in the NFL. And Carson Wentz was a perennial MVP candidate 2-3 years ago when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. So definitely a shock that I saw him going in the second round to Philadelphia. But definitely could be used like a Taysom Hill as well, tight end, running back, receiver situation as well. But what jumped out to me again watching First Take this morning is that Max Kellerman said that Carson Wentz should not be happy with them taking this pick and could demand a trade. Ooh. But they've committed so much money to Carson Wentz, paying him well over $100 million a year. And to see them take a quarterback so early, I think I'd be worried as well.
So with our next topic then, who do you think the biggest steal, there could be more than just one, who do you think the biggest steal or slide of the draft was this year?
Well, definitely in the first round, it was definitely Tristan Wirfs going to Tampa Bay with the 13th overall pick. Best lineman in the draft from what I saw from the tape. Very versatile offensive lineman as he can move around the offensive line and fill any hole really on that offensive line from what Tom Brady very well pleases because, he's wearing the pants, that whole Tampa Bay thing with them getting Gronkowski from New England. As well as I have Zach Bond going in the third round to New Orleans. I had him as a first round talent. Not really seeing he's quite undersized for a linebacker position, but definitely put up some big numbers with 75 tackles last season and 12.5 sacks, which was the 9th most in college football this season. Doesn't need to start this season with veteran linebackers like Demario Davis and Craig Robertson, but great mentors for him. And definitely he can make some mistakes because of such a high secondary they have with Marshawn Lattimore and Eli Apple.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, as much as I hate to say it, because I hate those Cowboys, but CeeDee Lamb to the Cowboys falling in that first round, their offense now, I think it's just loaded. With Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb now is their 3 receivers, and then they have Zeke, obviously, and Tony Pollard, who's breaking out to be a good running back in the league, and they have Dak, obviously. Choosing Lamb helps Dak try to earn his contract this year, like we mentioned before. He had close to 1,400 yards this year, 14 touchdowns, plus he added on a rushing touchdown. So he's someone who can be used in different ways. Another one you're going to like this is Grant Delpit from LSU. 44th overall to the Browns, but I just like that pick. 2 picks on 7 passes defended last year, and then 2 sacks as well. And the year before, he had 5 picks on 9 passes defended as a sophomore. So I think the Browns, I hate to say it, I hate those Browns too. They're somewhere in my division, but they're going to be a good team with these picks. And then my last steal of the draft, I would say, is 6'3" Denzel Mims, 59th overall to the Jets. He had just over 1,000 yards receiving and 12 touchdowns. And as a sophomore, he even had 1,000 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns. I think this Jets need to get better. They have Sam Darnold there still, who's still developing, so they need to give him a good receiver to help him flourish, I think.
Yeah, Denzel Mims pick I like very much, just because that Sam Darnold needs to prove himself this year, and this has to be the year that he needs to prove himself, just because he really hasn't put up any numbers or accolades like any other quarterbacks have in his draft class. Like Baker Mayfield definitely has the rookie touchdown record, but Sam Darnold really has not done anything in the league to this point to say, wow, this definitely was worth their while with this pick. But as we move along, we have our winners and losers for the draft. And Malcolm, you got some interesting names and teams here that you got for winners and losers.
So, like I mentioned before, those Cowboys, I think that they're winners with them drafting CeeDee Lamb, obviously. Another great pick, Trevon Diggs, quarterback. I think he's going to be a great pickup for them. They're
big steal as well. Big steal.
Really big steal. I think those Cowboys are just going to be great, all around now. Even I hate saying that. I just doesn't feel right saying that, but I think they're going to be a good team. Cardinals, they're winners, obviously picking Isaiah Simmons, 8th overall. It's not really much of a steal, but it is at the same time because of how versatile he is. Also with them picking Josh Jones to protect Kyler Murray, and even with them trading David Johnson to the Texans for DeAndre Hopkins, they picked Eno Benjamin, running back, in the later rounds. So I think they did a pretty good job of to be a winner in this draft class. The losers, I find, the Packers drafting Jordan Love. They picked Josiah DeGuara, tight end, pretty early on. I didn't like that pick really much. They should have picked a wide receiver, like you said. I don't know why they didn't pick a wide receiver. So I think they lost this year's draft. And as well, the Philadelphia Eagles picking
shout out Mateus.
Picking up Jalen Reagor. I did not see that coming. The pick right after was Justin Jefferson out of LSU, who I thought would have went to the Eagles, but I guess not. And then of course them picking Jalen Hurts, QB. They also picked another receiver later on, Quez Watkins. I can't pronounce his name. Quez Watkins, wide receiver. I just don't think they did well enough that they could have. They could have picked better players. They could have done something else and picked Jalen Hurts. I don't know what message they're trying to prove, but those are my 4 picks. What about you?
Yeah, just before we get into that, shout out to our good buddy, Mateus Rivera. He's got his own podcast, Mateus Show. Great guy. If you want to hear a good rant about the Philadelphia Eagles draft choices, take it a listen to him. But my God. My first winner is some team that's very near and dear to my heart. Is the Cleveland Browns. Definitely a big winner for the draft.
Can I just say, the Browns will always be losers. That's all I have to say.
But you know what? Mark my words here. April 27th, 2020, Unfinished Business Podcast, Episode 2. the Cleveland Browns make
You said this
the
last year.
playoffs.
You did this.
I say it, it's like it's a dime a dozen, We're like Leafs fans. I'm a Leafs fan as well. Leafs fans, Browns fans, they're quite similar in the fact that every year we think we're going to
But
be
the
better
Leafs
than
actually
we are.
have good talent.
But,
That's the thing. The Browns, I don't know.
well, before you start jumping into those kind of comparisons real quick, they filled every major hole that they needed to fill in this draft. Drafting offensive line with Jedrick Wills. Solid pickup. Number 2 O-lineman in the draft from my perspective. Fills that left tackle position that they desperately needed to fill with some terrible left tackle from all of this season. Safety Grant Delpit, who was a steal at the fourth in the second round, reigning Jim Thorpe Award winner, and the departure of Demarius Randall, who was really the backbone of that Cleveland secondary. Grant Delpit's numbers last season, 7 INTs since 2018, and coming off that 65 tackle season, like you already mentioned before, as well as getting linebacker Jacob Phillips from LSU, who fills the hole of Joe Schobert leaving, which is going to be definitely going to be a big shoes to fill, because he was definitely by far the most productive defensive player last season for Cleveland, with Myles Garrett getting suspended with some incident.
Some very hostile and criminal, like I would say maybe close to behavior.
Well, let's take a break here. Let's take a break from the draft for a second and just remember what happened on that event.
I'm not defending Mason Rudolph because I don't know what he may have said, because obviously he's not going to say, yes, I said that. But in the NFL, there's a lot of things that are said that should not be said. I agree.
So for some background information to the non-football aficionado, Cleveland and Pittsburgh is probably one of the biggest rivalries in all of the NFL.
I 100% agree with that. Come on.
Absolutely.
I hate your guts when we watch those games.
So it was I would say one of the first primetime matchups for Cleveland and Pittsburgh in quite some time. And there was a lot of buzz to this game because Cleveland needed to win this game to keep their season alive, as we say every year. But this, I don't know, was that like week 6? I would say week 6 of the season. And Cleveland was beating Pittsburgh just for a preview here. Oh, I bet you do. And in the Ben Roethlisberger era, Pittsburgh is 26-2 all time against Cleveland, and now 26-3 after that. Yes. They did win, but it was, I would say, like the second last play of the game. The game was over.
Yeah, it really was. So there's no need for any of it to happen.
Myles Garrett, went a little harsh on Mason Rudolph, and there were some words exchanged, and nonetheless, Myles Garrett, him being the machine he is at 6'5", 260, ripped off Mason Rudolph's helmet and gave him the 1-2 Mayweather.
If he hit him with that helmet, though, what could have been with Mason Rudolph already having a concussion in the season earlier on? I remember that face mask off. If he hit him square in the head, I don't know what could have. Like Mason Rudolph would not be playing in the NFL today. That's for sure.
And then after the fact, the Steelers' offensive linemen, all of them really started filling him Myles Garrett to give him the 1-2 Mayweather.
Oh yeah, you got to stand up for your quarterback when something like that happens. Obviously, you don't like to see it happen, but it's going to happen.
Don't think it would have happened with the coaching staff that Cleveland had with the young Freddie Kitchens being at the helm. And I think the repercussions that fall were quite reprehensible, with Myles Garrett being suspended the rest of the season and most of the Steelers offensive line being fined and or suspended. So I definitely think in this schedule to come, hopefully there will be fans next season, but there definitely should be another primetime game between Pittsburgh and Cleveland coming up. And there wasn't that much repercussions that followed the next game.
Yeah, there wasn't.
If you remember correctly, there weren't not much.
I think
any
they had
melees.
to tone it back. Then again, you could say they won that game, but there are also many injuries that those Steelers had to endure last year, with James Conner, Juju being injured, Deontay Johnson.
Cry me a river, sweetheart.
Those Browns almost killing Deontay Johnson. His ear was bleeding.
Juju
Mason
Smith-Schuster.
Rudolph. I don't know. Just there's Ben being injured first game of the season against the Pats, even though they were getting blown out that game. Oh my goodness.
Well, I guess it's tough when Pittsburgh just breeds a bunch of pansies in the league,
How about you make the playoffs and then we can talk, okay?
Mark my words. They make the playoffs this year. But as we stick along with the Cleveland royalty of the NFL draft, they got an absolute steal at the 6th round with the Michigan wide receiver, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Great receiver. As much as I hate it, I will never say that university with the M logo, me being an Ohio State fan, it'll be referred to as that team up north. So from that team up north, Donovan Peoples-Jones did not really have the biggest season this year with him playing behind some more primary receivers, but still solid numbers, still had 9 touchdowns this season, just under 1,000 yards receiving. And definitely he was my 82nd rated prospect, and it fell to the 6th round at 183. And definitely that third wide receiver position is definitely up in the air in Cleveland, with them releasing Antonio Callaway last season due to the marijuana. And Rashard Higgins still being up in the air with his contract dispute. So definitely a solid pick with Donovan Peoples-Jones. As well as the Indianapolis Colts I have as winners as well, with a solid wide receiver 2 position with Michael Pittman Jr. out of USC with the 34th overall pick, with them not having the first-round pick with the DeForest Buckner trade. But last season definitely showed that Indianapolis lacked depth at that wide receiver position, with T.Y. Hilton having a very injury-riddled season. So definitely gives Rivers more weapons to throw to, with him having such that long arm that he's very well known for with San Diego and Los Angeles. But Pittman last season had 1,275 yards receiving with 11 touchdowns, as well as them picking up probably the best running back in the draft, Jonathan Taylor with the 41st pick. Definitely the most NFL-ready body, with him being 225 pounds. Doesn't really need to mature anymore. Doesn't need to add any more weight to his system. But could very well compete with Marlon Mack for that number 1 running back position on the depth chart, But Jonathan Taylor in college never had a season less than 1,900 yards rushing, which speaks volume. And 13 touchdowns as well. Last season had 2,003 yards rushing and 21 touchdowns. But my losers are those birds up in Philly. Shout out Mateus, shout out Graydon Harris. Philadelphia Eagles should not have taken Jalen Reagor. And you can ask any Philadelphia Eagles fan, they should not have taken Jalen Reagor with the first-round selection, with so many high-profile receivers in that draft.
At least they took a receiver, because that fan base would have went crazy if they didn't take a receiver at all. But still,
yeah, definitely,
they didn't make the right choice.
I don't know. My favorite draft memory of the Philadelphia Eagles was, I think it was about 2 years ago, and David Akers was making the pick, former Philadelphia Eagles kicker, and I believe the draft was in Dallas. And you know how much Philadelphia gets that bad rap in Dallas. But it was awesome, because the second round is usually, again, you didn't really see it as much this year due to coronavirus, but usually in the second and third round, you get that alumni make your picks for you. And David Akers went to make the pick and just ripped apart Cowboys fans. It was just awesome to see. But the best part was his quote said, if I may, he said, "Hey, Dallas, the last time you guys were in the Super Bowl, all these players weren't even born, and they just lost it." And I believe the next year, Drew Pearson, who is probably one of the best wide receivers in Dallas Cowboys history, came up there, and I believe it was in Philly, and he said, "I'd like to thank the Philadelphia Eagles for letting me have the career I have." So that rivalry is bar none. But sticking to the draft, should have drafted Justin Jefferson, should have drafted Denzel Mims, two high-profile receivers. But Jalen Reagor is still going to be a solid player in this league, but definitely should not have been their first choice. As well as the Jalen Hurts pick did not really make sense to what their needs needed. Like I said, shout out Mateus Show, knows more about the Eagles than I do, but definitely should have taken linebacker with this position. Definitely did not have that great linebacker production like they had in recent years from the Super Bowl championship. But as well as the Carolina Panthers, I think, are losers in this draft as well. Did not take linebacker or receiver with any picks. Definitely a shock to me because of the loss, or retirement, I should say, of Luke Kuechly, perennial Pro Bowler, All-Pro, and soon to be Hall of Famer. And as well, the receiver position was kind of a breaking point for Carolina last year, and I think that's why Christian McCaffrey shined so much. Excuse me. But DJ Moore, primed to have a big career, big season this season, trying to establish himself to be that wide receiver number 1. But definitely a shock. Maybe, you never know, could be free agency pickup. But this isn't scheduled to be in the podcast. But what's your thoughts on the Jameis Winston deal?
I saw that, and I was just – they signed Drew Brees earlier on the season. They just paid Taysom Hill big money, and then they signed Winston to 1 year deal. I'm just as confused. I just think maybe he's that guy they're going to groom after Brees retires and joins his analyst career. But I think they're just going to groom Jameis Winston to be that guy. Hopefully make sure that he doesn't throw as many picks as he did last season. If he
gets
does,
that kind of
yes.
opportunity
I don't
again,
know what
but you
they're
never
going to do
know.
with him. Honestly, it's up in the air. They can do. What do you think?
Well, definitely a shock to me because after they made that signing, they did sign Taysom Hill to a 2-year,
Yeah.
$21 million extension, which is not cheap to be QB number 3,
Yeah.
in my personal view. But they must not believe in Taysom Hill throwing the ball because Drew Brees is he's no spring chicken anymore. But if they believe in Jameis Winston to be the heir to the Brees throne, and no, there's no better player to look up to than Drew Brees. He's one of the goats in this league. But definitely, if he doesn't find his groove this year in New Orleans, if he has a strong, well, he has to have the opportunity to have that. So if the opportunity arises and he shows up, he'll definitely get some big money somewhere like Teddy Bridgewater did, going undefeated this season as a starter, and he's getting paid for it now in Carolina. So definitely, if they have the same opportunity, you might see Jameis Winston getting big money elsewhere. So this does bring the end to episode number 2 of Unfinished Business. We hope to bring more sports into the fold rather than just NFL this next episode around. But stay tuned for more as we sign off for this episode 2. Let's take us away, Rick Astley.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down.